This is the Tyler Morgan Show on Relentless Daring Media Network.
Welcome to the land of bourbon and bad decisions, where the nights are long and the truth cuts deep. Voices rise against the tide with clear intentions, in the place where freedom never sleeps. Cause of the past in the halls of tomorrow, the light will chase away the whispers of sorrow. Stand tall, never bow, the fight's just beginning. With every word, the fire keeps on spinning. Like a rock, you got a message for the nation, raising up the flag with no hesitation. Through the storm, the fire burns bright. On the edge of reason, we defend our rights. Whoa.
Welcome back to Land of Bourbon and Bad Decisions. This is the Tyler Morgan Show, live on twitch.tv/Tyler Morgan Show. Or maybe you're checking this out later on the YouTubes, youtube.com/@the Tyler Morgan Show. By the @ and the, I don't know, I had to make it work for YouTube's rules. And also shout out to people who watch this on the Twitches as a replay. Appreciate you coming in a little bit later. Let's see. Oh, and yeah, don't forget to check this out on the podcast, wherever you get free podcasts. Is there for you to enjoy. And if you're again watching this on YouTube, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, all that happy stuff. So I know I've been away for a few weeks. Things have been a little hectic around here, family illness and such. And so I've had to, kind of step back, but yeah, I wasn't planning on staying away for forever. It was just, haven't had the time. And so I've had to prioritize things. So I'm getting back with it. But before I get into all the news it's worth talking about, let me talk to you about coffee. Yes, one of my favorite beverages in the world, coffee, and my favorite coffee comes from aprcoffee.com. American Pride Roasters, they fancy themselves the finest producers of coffee, and I have to agree with them. So many great blends of beans from around the world. And I'm a coffee flavored coffee kind of guy. So I really enjoy coffee that, is again, coffee flavored, just straight up black coffee. They're, so many good blends. The George Washington, the Teddy Roosevelt. I'm a really big fan of the, Thomas Paine Age of Reason remix, 100% pure Robusta beans, to give you a slight kick in the teeth when it comes to such wonderful things as caffeine. Can't go wrong with extra caffeine coffee. Check them out today. See what flavored coffee blends they have that you might want to enjoy, or check out the chocolate drop or the coffee drops that are kind of like a chocolate chip with the ground coffee beans in them for a wonderful coffee flavor. So again, check out all the great stuff at American Pride Roasters, aprcoffee.com. Historically great coffee. All righty. Jumping into it. There has just been so much that greetings programs. Yes, good old Steve back in the saddle, checking out the show. Glad to have you here. There's been so much that's happened last month. I don't even know really where to start. I'd like to try to keep it as, timely and topical as I can. But I guess first I will go into the Supreme Court upholding Donald Trump's DOGE plan on shrinking the size of government. Because what did a lot of Republicans want Trump to do? Shrink the size and scope of the government. And while he doesn't have a whole lot of say in, congressional staffers, the number of courts that work for the Supreme Court, he does have a wide range he can work with within the executive branch. And so he issued his executive order reducing the employees in the executive branch, and of course there was uh, an appellate court ruling that made as a class action that put a national injunction. So and it went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled that yes, it is within the scope of the president to reduce the size of the executive branch, and he can lay off a number of or however many civil service employees that he sees fit. Well, in this, um, the Supreme Court ruled that yes, he is allowed to do that. It is well within his purview as president, and now the left is all mad. And one of those on the left who's incredibly upset, even though she will not be affected by it, is his own niece, Mary Trump. And this is coming from Miami Herald. Federal workforce layoff efforts have faced significant opposition from unions, nonprofits, and local governments. National Federation of Federal Employees, the president, Randy Irwin, argued that only Congress can authorize a large-scale federal workforce reduction, but SCOTUS has permitted Trump administration to proceed with layoffs at 19 agencies. Does the federal government even really need to have that many agencies? And that's a whole nother question in and of itself. Clinical psychologist Mary Trump and other critics have warned of diminished government expertise and a loss of institutional knowledge. Mary Trump said, along with firing them, what is happening is he's destroying, in yet another context, institutional memory that will take us perhaps generations to get back. She added one thing the Trump regime has done. I love how they word that. It's not the Trump administration, it's the Trump regime. Like, we call for regime change in places like Iran or China or North Korea. One thing the Trump regime has done since day one of its current incarnation is destroy the civil service in America. Why? Well, because again, it is there to serve us, not the rich and powerful, not those who want us, not those who want us not to have any rights but us. Wow, now it's like trying to read a statement from the former Vice President, Kamala Harris. She stated, this is not an insignificant thing. It gives him more power than the corrupt, illegitimate majority of the Supreme Court has already given him. I do not know what in God's name Justice Sotomayor or Justice Kagan were thinking. Yeah, because they followed the Constitution. I know it's a scary thing to think that, the Constitution, would give the president powers to be able to control the executive branch. Ha! Steve says, when's the left not mad? Oh, they're always mad. But it's ridiculous to think that, the president can expand government without, without getting congressional approval, other than, they submit the budget request for what the executive branch needs to spend money on, and then Congress approves it. But heaven forbid the president try to shrink his own branch. And it's not that anyone in the government works really for the American people. The agency's employees work for the agency. The agency as a whole might work for the American people, but the people who work in it as has been noted many times throughout history, bureaucracies exist to protect bureaucracies. They work for the bureaucracy. Period. End of story. But going off on you know two liberal justices who let's just say had they voted against Trump, they still would have ended up losing 6-3 because it was a 8-1 decision with some wonderful legal wrangling and uh, truly constitutional dissent by uh, Ketanji Brown Jackson. White House officials know that the ruling affirms executive authority to streamline government operations. White House spokesperson Harrison Fields said, "Today's Supreme Court ruling is another definitive victory for the president and his administration." Fields added, "It clearly rebukes the continued assaults on the president's constitutionally authorized executive powers by leftist judges who are trying to prevent the president from achieving government efficiency across the federal government." Senator Elizabeth Warren, good old Pocahontas, warned these job losses could affect Social Security and public health services. Warren said, quote, "The Supreme Court just gave Donald Trump the green light to fire thousands of federal workers. Those are Social Security workers who help seniors get their checks on time, public health workers who keep us safe, and more. Trump wants to make it harder for people to get help." Well, if you keep the same number of people that process Social Security claims, but you just cut back and automate the parts of the Social Security Administration that don't actually need people there to run it, because Social Security Administration doesn't issue actual checks anymore. Social Security runs off of ACH, just like the VA no longer issues checks. They issue ACHs, direct deposits. The United States military, they pay via direct deposit. They do not issue checks anymore. Even way, way, way back in the long ago days of 2001, when I first enlisted in the National Guard, I'd never got a check, whether it was a bonus, whether it was, my drill pay. When I got activated to go to Iraq in 2003, it wasn't checks. It was direct deposit. None of my VA checks, I say checks. None of my VA pay comes via checks. Now, I have gotten, reimbursement, actual checks for mileage and stuff like that, but those are few and far between. And again, those are things that can be automated. You put in a system that allows the VA or the military or Social Security or USDA, whoever that is issuing checks to the American citizens, you automate that to where you just have to have someone input the information, click enter on the keyboard, and boom, it goes in, it processes automatically, and then on the 1st or the 15th, the check, if you will, is issued via direct deposit to the recipient. This isn't a hard thing to figure out. And you don't need a million redundancies. You don't need thousands of people whose sole job is really to occupy a desk and collect a paycheck to continue to do that. You don't. You go to any business, and if they have redundancies that are inefficient, they cut them. It's not a hard concept to figure out, well, if we can do this in the private sector, why can't we do it in the public sector? It's not hard to figure out at all. But instead, we have the people who all they want to do is continue. Oh man. Click show. Popped up and went away. The United States Department of Redundancy, Department of the United States. Yeah, pretty much. That sums it up. You know, and this is something I've seen during my time in the military when you have jobs, Department of the Army, Department of the Navy, what have you. People actually wear the uniform, and instead, the Department of Defense begins hiring civilians to do the same job for more money than what private or specialist or even a sergeant in the military, E1 or E5, you know, you have civilians who get paid more than what they do to do the exact same job. But this all goes back to FDR days of, well, we need to have all these jobs programs in place. That way we can put people to work. Well, okay, are these programs being filtered down to private companies that can do the exact same thing far more efficiently? No, you're just going to be part of the federal government, and they're going to do these jobs, collect federal money. Well, did we really need a civilian conservation corps that was 100% civilians that were doing jobs that civilian landowners were perfectly capable of doing? And if they needed, you know, federal funds to make it happen, we could have had mechanisms in place to be able to handle that. I mean, it's just we got this idea that the federal government has to keep expanding and keep doing more and more jobs that they could put out to other people. I mean, yeah, I live near Fort Leonard Wood. Nearly every road paving aspect that has gone on in improving Fort Leonard Wood and the roads and the troop trails has been done by outside contractors. My dad's company was really good at, you know, bidding these public works, and then they'd come in ahead of schedule and under budget and get these jobs done. Did we really need a federal workforce of people who, you know, kind of halfway knew what they're doing, going out and doing these same jobs? I don't think so. And you know, paying them at could ostensibly be higher than what the union rate was. And then you have, all the rigmarole of trying to get all these different projects done, paving a road here, paving a road there, paving a parking lot here, where everything has to be signed off on by superiors. It takes forever. It costs way more money than to just bid it out and say, hey, here's what the going wage is. Tell us how many people you're going to need, how much the labor is going to cost, how much the material is going to cost. and which contractor can offer the better bid and save the people money. Because ultimately, whether it's the executive branch, authorizing work to be done, whether it's again, uh, paving roads on military installation, or helping to uh, do work on federal lands as far as like the forestry service. The forestry service, they should be able to administer who's doing work in national forests, but they don't actually go out and cut trees themselves. They don't actually do a lot of the work, improving trails and stuff like that. It all gets bid out. And for the most part, seeing as how they know what their budget is, they do a pretty damn good job of making sure that that money's spent wisely. But when you get further and further away from where things are actually happening, you get higher up the food chain, you start seeing all the money going again to redundant workers who don't actually improve the efficiency of government. They don't make things more cost effective. They don't make things happen in a more timely manner. They just drag their feet, they slow roll, blah, 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 blah. So, shrinking the number of people who are collecting a paycheck without really doing anything is not harming anything. And as far as institutional knowledge goes, a lot of that institutional knowledge that's being laid off belongs to people who've been there for less than a year, or people who've been there for 15, 20 years are taking the buyout. Pardon me. And those are the ones who are being let go. And they're still retaining enough people that that institutional knowledge is secure. You're keeping enough people who can say, okay, here's how you need to do X, Y, and Z to make sure it happens quick, fast, and in a hurry. Here's the people you need to deal with when trying to make anything happen. So it's really not being harmed, Senator Warren, Mary Trump. It's good governance, doing more with less. Again, that's something that you see happen in the civilian sector a lot. You start, I'll get into illegal immigration here in a bit, but the this whole idea that you have to have warm bodies who do nothing more than consume oxygen and clickety clack away on keyboards is ridiculous. So, yeah, good on Donald Trump being able to make that happen. And despite the number of failings that he seemed to have been having, especially concerning like things like the Epstein case, where he's not going to have anything else released. Now he's telling DOJ to release the grand jury testimony stating everything they used to get the indictment that led to his arrest and his eventual suicide in prison. So like I said, that this stuff doesn't make any sense. When he was pushing the big beautiful bill and it didn't have a lot of the rollbacks in it to shrink government like people were wanting, and then coming coming out swinging against conservatives who really were working hard to minimize the role of government in our daily lives. Like Thomas Massey and uh, Rand Paul in the Senate. It, it's mind-boggling, saying that in the next election he's going to back someone to run against Thomas Massey in that district. Which there's a reason why Thomas Massey's district keeps sending him to Congress. Like, yeah, he hasn't really offered a lot in the way of legislation, but not everyone in Congress is going to have legislation that makes it to even committee. That's just the way Congress has set itself up, to where, oh, you want to be a committee chair? You need to bring in X number of dollars for the party, and then we'll decide who gets what seats. Our government has turned into two machines for Democrats and the Republicans, not just one side or the other. Both sides are guilty of it, and both sides are really bad when it comes to how we get laws passed through Congress and how we get laws passed through the Senate, and just determining which bills are going to actually be voted on. It's a con game from both sides against the American people. I know there's some people who are going to be like, "Oh, you can't say that." Well, I just did, and it's evident. You have so many other bad legislators on the right who they offer, really, really shallow support for Donald Trump or conservative ideas when they're campaigning. But then when they get to DC after they've been elected or reelected, they just put all that to the wayside. And when you do have people who are very good at voicing their constituents' concerns, not the party's concerns, their constituents' concerns, because their constituents who voted on them to put them in office, to say, hey, we need to expand this. Hey, we need to shrink this back. Hey, we need to cut spending. I mean, that's what we want. Here in Missouri, there's a lot of stuff that you could have just left it at bad legislators. It's about the one thing both sides are consistent on. Absolutely. Um, Josh Hawley. I voted for Josh Hawley because he said that, here's all the stuff that Claire McCaskill's doing that's not good, and I'm going to work to overturn it. But now that he's been DC for a couple terms, he is running and going around making all the same proposals that Democrats are doing. When the Ford plant up in Kansas City was striking, he was up there, power to the workers, yeah, fight for 15, woo! I'm like, dude, that is not what we voted on for you to go up there and do. There's no need for the federal government to be putting price controls on everything. There's no need for them to be putting price controls on anything, whether it be the cost of labor, telling people that, hey, even though your area can function, with a minimum wage less than X, you have to pay X. If the state of Missouri did vote for, $15 an hour minimum wage. I didn't vote for it. Because it was you know, a referendum vote. I didn't support it, so I didn't vote for it. Um, but if your state says, "Hey, our state needs higher than 7.25 an hour for people to be able to, have a shot of escaping poverty," okay, that I'm fine with that. If that's what the state wants, or if some of these bigger cities that have citywide minimum wage requirements because they know that, hey, the cost of living in Seattle is retarded. So now we're going to have a higher minimum wage in Seattle. That's fine. That's how federalism is supposed to work. But not just coming out, from on high in Washington, D.C. and telling everyone this is what you're going to do or else. It is absolutely ridiculous. All right. So I've been sporting a beard pretty much since I got out of the military. And for a long time, I had issues with dry, itchy face. And you just want to sit and just scratch at your cheeks because, it's so itchy and you get, you know, facial hair that breaks off and gets everywhere. And so that was one of the downsides of it. And a local company here started bluecollarbeardsman.com. And Blue Collar Beardsman allows you to get some of the finest beard oils that are tailor blended to give good conditioning. That way, your beard isn't dry and itchy, your skin isn't dry and itchy underneath, and really helps it grow in. And this generally helps you maintain a good, healthy beard. And if you sign up under Blue Collar Beardsman for their subscription program, every month you will get a bottle of a special scent for that month. And, you can pick and choose from their standard lineup and order when you need it. Or if you use it sparingly, like I do, you just get the once a month and build up a nice collection of scents you can kind of bounce around between. Check them out. They have a great selection of scents for your beard, as well as beard butters, beard wash, beard conditioner, uh, some apparel. You can get hats and t-shirts, uh, beard combs to keep it brushed out so it's not this big old bushy tingly mass. Check them out today, bluecollarbeardsman.com, for beard oil that works as hard as you do. I'm waiting for this silly thing to go away. All right, there it went. All right. So I was going to get into the whole illegal immigration thing. Yeah, it has been a thing for the past month. I talked about the Marines and National Guard being sent to LA to help with the riots and all that. But it really makes you wonder if the mindset of Democrats has ever really changed since the end of slavery. One of the big arguments against freeing the slaves was, well, who's going to pick our cotton? I don't know. Maybe pay the former slaves to actually do it. Maybe hire other displaced workers who need a job to pick the cotton. Maybe start again finding ways to pick cotton that don't involve uh, hundreds and thousands of man hours of back-breaking labor, people out in the field stripping cotton off of the plants. Well, now the same argument is made now about, well, who's going to pick our strawberries? Are Republicans going to go out there and do it for $2 an hour? Like, whoa, wait, stop. Are you advocating paying less than minimum wage? to farm laborers because they're illegal aliens who you can get away with paying them less because they're probably being paid under the table and it's not being reported. Weird that Democrats would be so hell bent on you know keeping so many people living in absolute squalor, doing work that quote white Americans won't do, end quote. I mean, it's ridiculous. So now roundups have been happening. There was a pot farm in California that was raided here in the last week or so where, oh my God, there's children being wrapped up. It's like, why are there kids working on a pot farm? Riddle me that, Batman. You have had a potential deal with Donald Trump to exempt these farm workers and people who work in the service industry, like hotels and such, that, wait, we're going to reward them and not find a way to work around and find what ways to recruit American citizens and legal immigrants to do these jobs. You're going to insist that we keep people who are being paid under the table doing hard labor like roofing jobs. If you've never roofed a house anywhere in the country in the summertime, that crap sucks. Because you have to on top of those asphalt shingles or the metal roofs that just either absorb and radiate out the heat or reflect it directly onto you. We're going to advocate for keeping people who are here illegally doing that hard work and paying them less than what you'd pay citizens or legal immigrants to do. Just seems, I don't know, a little slavey to me. But as we're getting more and more people round up, we have to have more places to put them. There's the big stink about Alligator Alcatraz, the illegal immigrant detention facility in the Florida Everglades that I didn't do a show on it, but seeing people who are freaking out about, well, you're just out in the swamps of the Everglades of Florida in the summertime, that's going to be so bad. You're going to have people getting sick and dying. It's like, well, okay, let's look at the pictures. You start looking at the pictures of these tents that look exactly like the ones that Barack Obama built, where you have the massive, climate control apparatus that are putting, blowing cold air into these tents in the summertime. And they're probably heat pumps. So in the wintertime, if it gets cold enough to need to flip on the heat, they can. So that way they stay warm and not freeze to death in the wintertime. Then what are they doing wrong? Well, they're bunk bed and cages. Like, yeah, I'm looking at them. And yeah, it's just chain link. It's not like they're, have electrified barbed wire or something. And yeah, they have bunk beds. That way they can get the maximum number of people in. And they're as far apart as any open bay with bunk beds I slept in the military. And like Steve said, when was the left not mad? They're just finding reasons to piss and moan because we're good people and we just don't want to see all these people suffer. No, I don't want to see people suffer. I don't want to see anyone who's being detained and held against their will, held in a facility that is going to make them sick and die. I I think we can agree on that. And if we're providing them shelter from the elements, if it's in a hot location, we're keeping it cool. If it's in a cool location, we're keeping it warm. That's that's all well and good. And as we're beginning to expand on where we're housing people, the Trump administration has now started looking at the refugees areas that we had from the Biden administration to house these illegal immigrants that are being detained. They're looking at military bases in New Jersey and Indiana. And Democrats, again, are pissed. So this is from Fox News. Military bases in both New Jersey and Indiana will soon be used by Homeland Security to house illegal immigrants, drawing a furious response from Democratic lawmakers. Parts of Joint Base McGuire Dix Lakehurst in New Jersey and Camp Atterbury in Indiana will be repurposed and used as, quote, temporary soft-sided holding facilities, end quote. The Defense Department told Fox News Digital, citing a decision by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Again, these are the facilities that we used, whether they were at Fort Hood, whether they were at Fort Dix, whether they're at Camp Atterbury, you name it. These are facilities that we've already been using. We're just repurposing them for detaining and processing illegal aliens. That maybe someone gets caught up, and they're in a Born in East LA, mockumentary where, maybe they are illegally and they got swept up and they go to a facility. And then once, your legal status has been affirmed, so we're going to let you go and send you back home. As much as they complain about people not getting due process, that is due process. Maybe it's they grab someone who has a stay on a deportation order for one or more reasons. They get caught up and they get held until, okay, this stay is 100% legit. You're good to go. Maybe it's a person who has an active deportation order. And once it's verified, okay, this deportation order is 100% legal. And now we're going to enforce this order. Why is this a bad thing? And like I said, these are, again, facilities that were used for Afghan refugees after we pulled out and Afghanistan turned into a bigger crap hole than it already was. I mean, if it was good enough for Afghan refugees during the Biden administration, why is it suddenly bad? Why are they suddenly awful with the Trump administration? So New Jersey Democrats blasted the decision, warning it would harm military readiness and urging Republicans to join them in helping to reverse it. Both bases were previously used to house thousands of Afghan refugees following the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. And how is it going to harm military readiness? Because it's not going to be the military running these detention facilities on the military installations. It's going to be DHS. This is an inappropriate use of our national defense system and militarizes a radical immigration policy that has resulted in inhumane treatment of undocumented immigrants and unlawful deportation of U.S. citizens, including children across the country. Okay, The times that the children have been who are US citizens have been deported was because their parents were here illegally and they had active deportation orders. And instead of finding a way for their children, including the one unfortunate soul who had, you know, severe cancer, to be able to stay, whether is it whether it is with friends, whether it is with family who is here legally, whether it is saying, hey, no, the foster care system isn't necessarily the best system, but we want our children to stay here. No, they take their children with them. It is not the Trump administration going, oh, you're just a poor little anchor baby. Bye bye. And you kick you out with your parents. No, this is choices that their parents are making. Choices to take them back to their country of origin because, well, we just don't want to see families get separated. Yet there were 300,000 children during the Biden administration that we have no clue where they are at even to this day. These are children. We didn't know where they were. Even back then, you had lawmakers questioning the DHS secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas, and he couldn't answer the damn question. And it's not you have children and you have minors who are here legally or who are citizens that go back to Mexico, Guatemala, Somalia, uh, Niger, wherever in the world their parents came here illegally from. But they still have this wonderful thing called American citizenship that if they're able to find a way that they can get back to the United States and stay with family, stay with friends, stay with people who are going to look out for their best interest and not have them disappear off in the middle of nowhere, they have that going for them. They can return at any time. But the left doesn't want to view that. They only want to see the outrage. They love the outrage porn. And this is just more of it. Using our country's military to detain and hold, again, the military's not doing it. DHS is doing it on a facility, on a federal installation. It jeopardizes military preparedness and paves the way for ICE immigration raids everywhere in the New Jersey community. We have the greatest military in the world, and using it as a domestic political tool is unacceptable and shameful. I just dropped my phone with the news article. Yeah, Steve's 100% right. They don't want solutions. They want a reason to be angry. And the sad part is, it's not just Democrats that want reasons to be angry. We have Republicans who are just as bad about, throwing their hat in on a hot button issue, and they get their sound bites, they get their think pieces written, they get their editorials published. But at the end of the day, you say, okay, well, these are some legit issues that you brought up. How would you like to, what ideas do you have to fix it? And it's just crickets. Because they don't care about fixing issues. They only want a reason to be pissed off and to fundraise off of it. It's like the gun control debate with Democrats. Democrats really don't care about kids being killed with guns. They care about getting rid of guns. That's the bottom line. And when you point out the actual rarity of mass shootings versus just regular gun crime in America, they just scoff and like, "Ah, well, the problem isn't the people, the problem is the guns." So like, no, this is literally the people are the problem. It's people who don't care about the law, period. Full stop. They're the ones who are the issue because a criminal is going to criminal regardless of what the law says. You ban guns in America, you're going to turn a bunch of law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight because I'm going to tell you right now, if guns were to be banned tomorrow, I am not giving up my guns. I will be Charlton Heston telling the federal government, you can take my guns when you pull them from my cold, dead fingers. And again, they keep making this argument that it's the military. No, the military will do, a lease program to DHS where basically funding from DHS gets transferred to the DoD, whether it's Department of the Army, whether it's Department of the Navy, what have you. Camp Atterbury in Indiana is a National Guard facility. That's money that's going to go into the National Guard. And, we talk about things being underfunded. The National Guard is pretty underfunded. I mean, when I deployed to Iraq, I was months into the deployment before I got rid of the old, Kevlar only flak jacket and got an actual, interceptor body armor with the ceramic plates that will actually stop an AK-47 round. That's the level of funding we complain about things like the National Guard not having. So if we're getting money by leasing facility space to DHS, it's a win-win. DHS has a place where they can, operate a facility, and they don't have silliness like local mayors showing up and getting themselves arrested by trying to crash the facility because, oh, yeah, sorry, you don't have an acceptable reason to be on post, so we're not going to give you a pass. Granted, members of Congress could show up with their congressional credentials and be like, hey, I'm here. I'm going to go check this out. And, there's really not a whole lot that they can do because they do have that congressional oversight. But at the same time, it's always best to call ahead. This statement was made by Representatives Herb Conaway, LaMonica McIver. Ah, yes, LaMonica McIver, who's facing federal charges on assaulting a DHS official. Donald Norcross, Rob Menendez, Frank Pallone, Bonnie Watson, Coleman, Josh Gottheimer, and Nellie Powell, I don't know, as well as Senators Cory Booker and Andy Kim. It's unclear when either site will be open, and a decision will depend on operational requirements and coordination with Homeland Security, the Defense Department says. Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst is a joint military base operated by the Air Force, Army, and Navy, the only tri-service base in the country, spanning 42,000 acres, 4,200 acres. I don't know. It has really weird comma placement. It's home to 45,000 military and civilian personnel, making it one of the largest and most strategically important installations on these. Who is doing the copy editing? Please, if you're going to have a sentence, have it make sense. Camp Atterbury is an Army and Air National Guard base near Edinburgh that spans 34,000 acres and has been used for training brigades and hosting large-scale operations. Under Trump administration, Homeland Security has been using detention facilities to house migrants while they await asylum hearings or deportation, which is what they should be doing. This whole idea of, okay, we're going to give you an asylum hearing sometime the next 2 years. Be sure you show up for your court date. And then, I will be darned. They don't show up for their court date. So that way they can explain to the judge, here is why I feel I need asylum. Here are the circumstances that I left my area from because I was a good law abiding citizen, but I refused to play ball with the gangs or the cartels or, you know, whatever the political party is that has now started trying to persecute me. And going and laying that out before the judge so the judge can go, okay, that is a strong case for asylum. I approve it. Or, oh, you're poor and you need asylum. Yeah, that's not good enough. You're going back home. The whole idea is turning all these people out and not keeping them detained until they can have their day in court for due process, because that's the buzzword that the left loves. Due process, due process. That's all. That has been the biggest issue. It's the reason why we have, 22 million or more illegal aliens living in the country under the Obama administration. Just turn a blind eye to it. Under the Biden administration, everyone who says I'm seeking asylum, no matter where they cross the border, even though the law specifically states they have to declare asylum at a port of entry. That ignoring of the law, that flaunting of Congress who passed those laws and previous presidents who have signed those bills into making them law and made them part of the U.S. code. That is why we are where we are at today. Whew. I almost had a Kamala Harris moment myself there. Yeah, it's just, and they keep going on about, the military is going to run it and it's going to hurt everything. No, again, military is not running it. Stop. Just stop spreading lies. I know it's hard to do on both sides. Both sides love to lie out their asses, but end of the day, the truth will prevail, and hopefully we do see a turnaround in the issues with what's going on with immigration in this country. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for me tonight. Again, thank you for those of you joining live. Steve, you've been very, very talkative. I'm glad you were here. Love hanging out with you there, pretty princess. But yeah, if you're checking this out on the YouTubes, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. That way, whenever I release new content, you get notified about it. If you're checking this out on podcast and you're new to the podcast, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and look for 5 stars. I'll accept 4, 3 and below. Hit me up on the Twitters at Fake Tyler Morgan, and have a nice, professional, courteous explanation why you think I deserve 3 stars or less, because I can accept criticism, and if I can use it to be better, I will. But if you just come out swinging, being a blowhard or being a jerk, I'm going to make fun of you and ignore everything you say. Once you have rated it, write a review, say something nice about the show. That way, as the algorithm helps people find the show, they can read the reviews and go, oh, people generally like him. Except for that one guy who called him a Alex Jones wannabe and says he talks about himself way too much. I will keep bringing that up. I will keep making fun of you, sir. Once you've subscribed, rated, and reviewed, please be sure to share this episode or the show in general with your friends, families, coworkers, who you think will enjoy it, who you think this will piss them off and drive them up the wall. I love being used as a tool to piss off people and drive them up walls. Very good at it. And I'm glad to help. Again, thank you so much for listening. And as always, stay relentless.
The Tyler Morgan Show is a Relentless Daring media production. The Tyler Morgan Show is supported by its listeners. To support the show, go to ko-fi.com/Tyler Morgan Show to donate there, or relentlessdaring.com and hit the donate button at the top of the page to set up your donation. All music used in the Tyler Morgan Show is used with permission from herbalplanet.com, link in the show notes. 2 Timothy 1:7.